if you're at a party with mosquito control folks, you're talking about mosquito control stuff. That's how nerdy we can get. So it is 7 o'clock. 7. Wow, what time zone am I in? It is 11 a.m. Here Pacific time, and we are here for the Bite Back tour stop in the lovely city of Rosemead. With us today, well, first, my name is Levy's son, Public Information Officer, and then we have my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allie. I'm the Outreach Assistant.
And then let's take a look and introduce our surveillance representative from our surveillance department. Hello, Kim.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Nelson, and I am a vector ecologist.
All right, and we have our operations representative.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hendrix Peña. I am a vector control specialist number 2. I'm ready to inspect and protect.
Oh, I love
like
that. Hey,
I need a catchphrase just like that.
I like that too.
And we also have a very special guest, City of Rosemead Councilmember Sandra Armenta, and also our trustee on the board. Welcome, Trustee Armenta.
Thank you so much, Levy, and thank you everybody for being able to be part of this such important discussion that we're going to have about mosquitoes, those pesky little bugs. But I'm so honored to be here, and thank you so much. May everybody have a great day, and I can't wait to hear about this presentation.
Very cool. Thank you so much. And for those of you watching on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube, go ahead and input any questions or comments you may have. I'll be monitoring it throughout the next half hour. But we do have some questions that have been submitted to us ahead of time. So we will definitely refer to those throughout this Bite Back tour stop in Rosemead. By the way, not many people know this, but Rosemead wasn't always called Rosemead. In fact, in the early settlers, we actually had folks, this one person named Leonard Rose, who purchased about 500 to 700 acres to breed and train horses in this region. And his place was called Rose's Meadow. And because of those names, it was eventually combined to be Rosemead. So that's a little bit of insight into the city.
Yes, thank you so much, Levy. You do know our history really well. And that is why we have a horse in an orchard in our city seal. Because of the fact that Rosemead is named after Rose's Meadow, which at that time was a big chunk of what Ranch Park or Garvey Ranch Park in Monterey Park is. So a lot of that area was the actual the horse farm. And so yes, absolutely.
And what's really amazing about that is I've heard many descriptions, including the city motto of today's small town America. And it truly embodies that as you drive through Rosemead and you interact with the residents and the businesses there. So it's always fun going through and visiting the businesses and talking to residents about mosquito control in the city of Rosemead. And interesting to bring up horses because that does help us dovetail into something about West Nile virus, because we know that West Nile virus is a disease that's commonly carried by birds, but transmitted between mosquitoes to birds as well. But horses can also get West Nile virus here. And we do have West Nile virus cases. So for all you horse lovers out there, great job on taking care of your horses. For us in mosquito control, we're out there making sure that your horses and us people will stay safe. But let's go ahead and dial it back a bit to the 20,000 foot level and look at not just horses, not just people and birds, but let's look at it from a big perspective. And let's talk more about, I guess we could say, our ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, Allie, what do you usually think about?
Hi, Levy. I usually think about when I'm screen sharing here. I think of really dense vegetation. I think about, a lot of shade, a lot of humidity. I think of a lot of insects as well.
Okay. And for Kim and Hendrix and even Trustee Armenta, if you want to jump in, feel free to do so. But I'll go ahead and say a lot of people who talk to me and they hear me say ecosystem, they immediately think about the jungles, the desert, the ocean life, and all the animals that are in that ecosystem. But for what we talk about a lot, our ecosystem here in the city is actually the city. We have our own ecosystem that we built up. Everything that we do as human beings in the city of Rosemead, it creates this ecosystem. So the gutters are part of our ecosystem, the water fountains, the rain barrels we set up, and even the plants we put in our homes are eventually part of that ecosystem that then draws in or pushes out certain types of animals or wildlife. So
Yes, can I just add to that? And something that I learned while being a trustee for the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control, that mosquitoes lay eggs, and these eggs become dormant. But the minute a tiny little bit of water touches these eggs, they revive and go through the larva stage and then become full-blown mosquitoes. And so that's why we're talking about pipes, drainage, because attached to those may be many, many thousands of little mosquito eggs.
absolutely, that's very true. I'm so glad you brought it up because that does segue us into the topic of mosquito biology. And for the viewers out there, surprise, we just caught you into a mosquito biology course 101 here.
Yes, that makes me happy.
Yes, especially for our vector ecologist, Kim. When it comes to mosquito biology and the life cycle, as Tricia Armenta mentioned, they start out in tiny little eggs that could either be planted on the edge of a container or a plant stalk or laid as egg grafts. And they then develop into the aquatic stages as larvae. Some kids actually think that the larvae are tadpoles. In fact, one time I was at a fair and this kid came up to me and said, I got a bunch of larvae that I brought inside the home and I couldn't find them afterwards. They just disappeared. I think they just hopped away once they developed into frogs.
Oh,
That's so cute.
Yeah, it is cute when you hear it. I picked up a jar of mosquito larvae that we had and I asked him, did the tadpoles look like this? And his eyes widened up and he said, yes, just like that. Just like what you see on the screen here, you see the wiggly larvae there. And I turned to his parents and said, I'm sorry to let you know, but your son brought home, inside the home, hundreds of mosquito larvae, and they probably hatched out. And you could see the light bulb click in the mom's head where she realized why they were getting bit a week after her son brought home all these tadpoles. So,
Poor
but-
mom, she must have been terrified.
yes. I cannot imagine. I mean, the worst possible scenario in my mind as a resident is waking up and getting mosquito bites everywhere. I can only imagine seeing it on all my family members. But Ali, I believe you may have something else to show, including not just the larvae and the pupae in that microscope, but perhaps the eggs themselves. I like that Tricia Armenta mentioned the eggs, and we have an egg graft here underneath this USB microscope. It's Ali's hunting for it. There we go. That is a very tiny egg graft, probably the size of the pinpoint of a needle there. It's really hard to detect by the naked eye, but this is what mosquitoes lay when they lay their eggs. At least the Culex mosquitoes, the one that lays the egg grafts. Now, a common question we get by the time I tell people this is, well, why do mosquitoes even need to bite us? If they got their eggs, they can do their thing, why bite us? Well, mosquitoes end up using the protein in our blood to develop the eggs. And they lay their eggs using stagnant water. And it's the stagnant water that Tricia Armenta alluded to earlier that attracts mosquitoes. And for us, and especially for Kim out in the field, we take advantage of their need for stagnant water, and we use the stagnant water in our traps. So Kim,
Yes,
why don't you just give us a little insight? Because I see something behind you that looks like a toolbox. What is that? Could you give us some insight?
yes. So this toolbox right here is actually one of our gravid traps. And so we set it up with water. It has a hay water infusion, which is totally safe, but we set it up and we put the toolbox on top. We have it sit overnight. And then when we come back in the mornings, open it, turn it off, and then seal it. This is what we use to get our data. We take the data based off of the collections of the mosquitoes in the trap, and we input them into the computer, and we analyze them over time. We also give them to our specialists like Hendrix. So with us being in Rosemead, I would collect the trap coincidentally at Rosemead Park or at Garvey Park, and we would make sure that Hendrix is able to know what the counts are.
Wow.
Yeah, so with that, we use that data to go looking for where they might be. We already have sites where they already are, and we have old sites where they are as well, and we'll follow up on those. And even just with doing that, we might find a new site where they're breeding, and we'll add that to our database. So it does help out a lot to have those traps and figuring out that if there's a high population of mosquitoes in the area, we have to focus our efforts there. And if we do find them, we'll treat the area and we'll keep going back continuously to figure out, you know, or to bring down the population.
Right. Wow. Thank you.
And I have to add that since we are putting our own water down at the end, after we pick up our traps, we make sure we toss the water out because we want to protect everybody.
That's right. You want to end up setting up a trap and attracting more mosquitoes to the area.
Exactly.
Very-
So we collect the mosquitoes and then toss the water.
Levy, can I
Speaking
just
of-
add? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Levy, I just need to make sure that our residents understand the importance of the city being a part of such a great agency that helps us with mosquito and vector control. Many people didn't know that or don't know that we actually are part of this association agency. And if it wasn't for the fact that we belong to the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control, we wouldn't be able to have these services provided to our residents and to be able to monitor and see what areas need to be addressed. So I just really want to share that with our community. Very grateful for the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control, their staff, and making sure that Rosemead residents are protected from the mosquitoes and the diseases that they carry.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Trista. Yeah, this is just one of many ways, especially in terms of education, of increasing that transparency to your residents and to everyone in Rosemead. We work very closely with the city. In fact, a lot of the data that you hear Kim talk about collecting, a lot of the data that Hendrix uses out in the field, we convey that to the city. So that way the city is always aware if there's something that may be of concern. So if there's ever potential outbreak of dengue fever or Zika in Rosemead, the city will definitely be the first in the loop, and we work very closely with them to protect the residents. So yeah, thank you so much.
Hey,
for
Levy, let
Yes.
me add to that. So as we are talking about the data and making sure that Hendrix is going out and making the treatments, after we collect these mosquitoes and we pass the data on to Hendrix, we actually send these mosquitoes to get tested. So they get tested for the different diseases that can possibly cause issues with the public. So we just want to make sure that people know that we're testing these diseases and we're making sure that as we are conducting this surveillance that we're trying to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for that input. I do have one question that was submitted just now from a member of the public. They said, for these traps, I mean, do they just trap all the mosquitoes out of existence from the city? I'll throw that to you, Kim.
They do trap the different mosquitoes. We have actually a variety of different traps. The one that you can see in the picture here is the gravid trap that I actually have behind me. But we also have carbon dioxide baited traps, and we have a few others that we have up our sleeves to make sure that we can test and get the different diversity and a variety of species to make sure that Rosemead is protected and all of our species.
And so would it be realistic to set up thousands of these traps to trap mosquitoes out of existence, according to this question I got?
No, it would not be realistic. The most realistic thing that we can tell people is toss your water. Because if you tip and toss your water, you're able to do more than these traps can do.
Perfect. And
that's actually a better treatment than any pesticides we could ever use. Getting rid of the water means no mosquitoes. The only problem is that if you do everything you're supposed to do on your own property, you don't know what's going on in the gutter out there or the catch basin or possibly a stagnant pool a couple of houses away. So everybody needs to work together and get rid of water. And that is the actual best treatment that anybody could ever do.
Thank you for the input. I want to pause on this photo that Ali is sharing, looking into the underground storm drains, because we also have another question that was submitted last tour stop, but I think it's a really good one for this one, especially for our city residents, because they would want, the question was, well, during the winter, I don't see any mosquitoes. So where do they go? Do they fly south? What happens to them? And this photo here really tells you the story of where they may go. And in our underground storm drain systems, it's commonly, it's very consistently warm and humid down below. We may be getting temperatures in the 40s and 50s above ground, but down below, it could be 70 degrees, perfect for mosquitoes to hide out and wait out the cold weather, which is why sometimes in the winter, you may see warm days and suddenly there's a ton of mosquitoes everywhere biting you up, and you're wondering, where did they all come from? It could very well be from an underground storm drain, or maybe even just another source that hasn't been monitored. But for us, our agency, we do have underground storm drain teams that go out and monitor for mosquitoes that may be underneath. Hendricks, have you had done much work with the underground storm drains?
I have not, but I do work with the catch basins that are along the gutters, and I'm gonna show you that right now. As a matter of fact.
Oh wow! All right, we're going live in the field. All right, Hendricks, just watch out for traffic. Right, so, be careful.
So if you can see across the street, I'm going to show you right now. There's a bike, motorcycle parked in front of it, but that is a catch basin. Let me know if you guys could see that.
Yes, I see the bicycle. I see, yeah. So it looks like a drain that a gutter kind of flows into.
Right. And so I'm also parked in front of one right now. I don't know if you could see that. Probably not. But I also caught some larvae so you guys can see what's going on in this cup. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah, so that's water you just dip, or you dip from the storm drain right there?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in case the folks can't see?
Yeah, so you're seeing pupa and probably about first and second stage larvae. I don't know if you guys can see them moving around in there.
Yeah, let me go ahead and make sure that your video is spot lit for everyone. Yeah, we see some things swimming around in there. So that's larvae, one of the aquatic stages of the mosquito.
Right.
And if this was left untreated in that catch basin, how long would it take for these mosquitoes to turn into flying, biting adults?
About 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how hot it is. The weather does matter to them. But yeah, you'll have flying mosquitoes in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, depending on how cold it is as well. But yeah, they'll be out and ready to do the whole life cycle all over again. So it's important that we treat permanent sites like this, as well as just checking in miscellaneous sites that the water could be removed. It's definitely good to tip and toss when we have the chance to do it. But there's sources like this that you can't help, but we have to keep rechecking them. And we'll be doing it for the rest of until the earth is over.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. What would you recommend to residents who are out and about enjoying their day like this?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yes, Hendricks, that question was for you.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What would you recommend for residents who are out and about walking near a drain? Would you recommend that they check it themselves, or would you recommend that they wear repellent, or that they stay inside?
If it's a drain on their own property, they can screen it and get like the window mesh and double up on it, and then just put the drain cover back on top. But that's for their own property. If they see something that they are concerned about, they should call it into our office, and then we'll go out and check it out.
And I will definitely like to add that they should also wear protectant. You want to wear some insect repellent when you're out and about, because then you can help protect yourself from bites.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to the next segment. So for those of you just tuning in, this is the Buy It Back tour in the beautiful city of Rosemead. We're joined by myself, Levy's son. We have Ali Gaspar. We have Hendricks representing operations and Kim representing surveillance. And we have a very special guest, council member and trustee Sandra Armenta on the line here. So we just finished talking about some of the common public sources that we see. With this, before we dive into repellent, I do want us to touch a little bit on the private property sources, because the majority of the mosquito issues that we observe and collect data for actually happens in people's own backyards, patios, and balconies. And a lot of people would think, well, I don't have a swimming pool, I don't have a large rain barrel, so it can't be me producing these mosquitoes. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't take much. Trustee Armenta early in the beginning did mention that it takes a little bit of water just to get these mosquitoes going and track them to lay their eggs. So small sources like saucers, small buckets, and even old tires can be a source of mosquito breeding and creation. So we want you to make sure once a week to dump out any stagnant water around your home. And by doing it once a week, you interrupt that life cycle that mosquitoes go through.
And Levy, can I just also add that the city council also passed a pool ordinance, and to make sure that any pool that is just has stagnant water and isn't being treated, that the property owners must help and combat the mosquito breeding. And we all know that a pool is a huge breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Yes, absolutely. And here's a little bit of trivia. So next time our viewers are at a party, eventually, you can throw this little factoid out. A full swimming pool that's gone bad, it's green, it's dirty, it's not maintained, can produce about 3 million mosquitoes a month. So imagine that greatly impacting the health and safety of a neighborhood. So
I'd like to share a story about how many mosquitoes could be in a pool. I was walking up to a pool at a property, and I thought it was just completely dark green. And it wasn't, it was actually light green, but when I walked up to it and I disturbed the water, there were so many mosquito larvae there that when they tried to swim down, the pool changed color to a lighter color. That's how many mosquitoes were in that pool. It was just, I couldn't even imagine the count for that pool. But we treated it and we made sure that it ended up being empty in the end. So it worked out in the end. But between the time we found out about it and the time I got there, who knows how many mosquitoes had gotten out at that time.
Right. And
well, see, Levy, that actually brings a good point, that a lot of homeowners are unaware that they're breeding these mosquitoes. Being in vector control for so long, I know we always put so much effort into teaching people big bodies of water, standing water, wherever it is, that's what's going to be breeding mosquitoes. And then all of a sudden, we get this new mosquito that comes in with its new species. And now we have to retrain the public to know that it's not just the big sources. These little sources are now breeding with biting mosquitoes during the day. And it's important for people to really understand that they can actually help themselves.
Yeah, thank you for that pivot there.
Yeah, it's very important to know that they can help themselves.
And with the new mosquitoes, the name that they are known as are Aedes mosquitoes. They're more specifically the invasive Aedes. Invasive because they do not belong in your ecosystem here in Rosemead and throughout California. These are mosquitoes that originate out of tropical environments, tropical climates. But we unfortunately, in the way we develop our cities, our home space, especially our home space, we have created what looks like Jurassic Park in our front and backyards. And these dense vegetation attract these Aedes mosquitoes. And some of your viewers, some of you out there may actually know these mosquitoes as ankle biters, black and white mosquitoes. They have various names, different species like Asian tiger mosquito, yellow fever mosquito, but to sum it up, they're just bad Aedes mosquitoes.
Right.
And the picture that Ali was just showing with the dense vegetation is an example of where they may hide out. So yes, you may get rid of the water. And we had residents tell us, well, we get rid of the water weekly, but we actually don't know where they're coming from. They're still biting us. When we look around the yard with them and we see images like this, where the foliage is very dense, there's not a lot of airflow going the underside of leaves. They have a lot of ivy, perhaps, just crawling up the wall and down on on the ground. And ivy especially is a popular resting place for adult mosquitoes just to hang out. Mosquitoes are really terrible at regulating their body temperature, so they need help. And to do so, they use what you give them, and that's dense vegetation. We have a shout out here from someone from Guadalajara, Mexico, tuning in. So hello there, Ed. Nice of you to join us and viewing us. He's currently viewing on our Facebook feed. So if you're just tuning in, this is the Bite Back Tour. We're about 4 minutes out from concluding this session here in the city of Rosemead. If you're a resident or a human tuning in, that's Bite Back. If you're a mosquito tuning in, well, you flew into the wrong webinar. So I want us to now dive into the topic that was briefly mentioned earlier, and that's repellent. We get a lot of questions about repellent. So first off, Ali, why don't you just list off the 4 main ingredients to start us off?
Residents should be looking at oil of lemon eucalyptus, DEET, picaridin, and IR 3535 when shopping for repellents.
All right. And if you're like me looking for repellent, you're walking down that aisle, whether it's in a pharmacy or a large retailer, it looks like a rainbow of selection. You don't even know where to start. So the best place to start is take a bottle, pick it up, and look on the ingredient list. And on the ingredient list, you should look at any of the 4 that Ali mentioned. So DEET has always been the gold standard, but there are other options out there if you're not a fan of DEET. Oil of lemon eucalyptus is another one. It may also go by the initials PMD. So oil of lemon eucalyptus or PMD. You can look for that on the bottle. There's also picaridin and IR 3535. And these are all ingredients that have been CDC recommended and are EPA registered. And plenty of studies have shown them to be safe when used according to labels. So please don't just grab one and spray yourself in the face with it. Apply it properly. I've seen too many times where parents would tell their kid, hey kid, son or daughter, close your eyes, and it just missed their entire face down. You don't want to do that. Follow the instructions. If you have a young one, please talk to your pediatrician for guidance on that. Now, anything, I heard someone mention something right now. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I was about to jump in real quick and just say that now that the weather is warming up, when applying sunscreen, make sure you apply sunscreen first, then apply repellent after. You want to protect yourself from the sun as well as mosquitoes.
Yeah, and then always good thing to remember that, you know, the itchiness, the red swelling from mosquitoes really do suck, but we cannot forget that these little bloodsuckers, they can spread diseases when they bite. So ditch the itch, reach for repellent, everyone. Now, let's go into another popular topic we have about 2 minutes left here, and I want to go into some myth busting on repellent. So I was going to start off with a common myth I see in here, and there was a question that was brought up, is do those repellent bracelets actually work? The ones that go around your wrist? I did a couple years back. There wasn't enough studies, so I thought, let me be a study. I bought one of those bracelets, stuck my arm in a cage full of mosquitoes, and guess what? The repellent bracelet worked around my wrist. But everywhere else on my hands, up my arms, I was bit up left and right. So if you do want to use those bracelets, buy 100 of them, bring them up and down your arms and legs, but you're probably better off using a repellent. Does anyone else have any other repellent myths that you've come across over the years?
Hi, Levy. Yeah, I do. Actually, my mom bought a mosquito repellent shirt, which of course was very disappointing because she went out and she got bit up all through her shirt, and she was so surprised, and she went to the store, wanted to get her money back, and ended up walking out with a ton of repellent bottles instead.
A repellent shirt, that's a first one for me.
Yeah, it was purple.
I have always just used off with DEET, and that works great. I wear it every day, and it works great. I haven't got bit, I think, in about 2 years. So that works really good, but you do want to test it on your skin before you put it on. Some people do have an allergic reaction. So put it on a small portion of your skin and see if it does anything bad to you. If it does, don't use it.
Yeah, and always consult a doctor and always follow the label when you apply. One other quick little thing, another myth that we
Sorry.
found. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
So I went to a wedding that was outside, and the bride told me that she has candles that she put on the tables to help with the mosquitoes. And she was unaware that I worked for mosquito control, vector control. And so she lit all the candles when it got to the evening time, and everyone started complaining because they were getting bit by mosquitoes. So lucky me, opened my purse and pulled out some deep repellent, and just sprayed on me, rubbed it in. And they were like, can we have some? So I definitely like carrying repellent.
Yeah, that's candles are popular. The things that you burn, the coils are popular. Anything that doesn't apply to the skin has been popular. But we have found that if there's any kind of breeze outdoors, it's going to carry that effectiveness away. So you're better off again applying directly to the skin. So we have reached the end.
Guys, I have to go.
All right,
You guys
Hendrix.
take care.
Thank you for joining us.
inviting me.
In. We're just about wrapping up, so we'll see you hopefully at the next Bite Back tour stop. For
That's
now,
my cue to go. Also, I have to go tip and toss some water.
All right, yeah, that's the spirit.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
So we just hit the end here. We're wrapping it up now. So I want to just go ahead and have some closing remarks from Ali, and then we'll go to Trustee Armenta, and I'll wrap us up at the end. So go ahead, Ali.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us on our Bite Back tour stop in Rosemead. Just want to remind everyone that when it comes to the heat, mosquitoes are just like us. They hate it and they can't handle it. So make sure to cut back on your dense vegetation in your backyards and your front yards, and that you're wearing repellent every time that you're outside.
Thank you so much, Ali. Trustee Armenta, any last parting words to residents before we sign off on this session?
Yes, thank you so much, Alivi, Kim, Hendrix, and Ali for bringing this Bike Back tour to the city of Rosemead. Please don't forget, we are in spring, meaning that we are going to see much more mosquitoes. And as we've already mentioned, wearing repellent and dumping out stagnant water is extremely important to combat mosquitoes.
Thank you so much. And we will make sure that this recording is available to all residents in the future so you can refer to this video. For those of you who found us on Nextdoor, I will make sure that we update that post to include the link so you can watch this streaming video if you do miss it. And finally, sign off. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we are in the city of Almonte, so join us then. Every Thursday at 11, we are going through the entire San Gabriel Valley in every city to bring you transparent and relevant information in a fun way about mosquitoes, because we know talking about mosquitoes isn't exactly the sexiest thing, and it's not the most headline-driven thing you see on the news, but we like to make it a little more fun, a little more entertaining. So thank you all so much for joining us, and stay healthy and stay bite-free.